You are, whenever you are. We're glad you're here, right here on Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. God loves you. He created you, and you, my friend, are so worth it. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Great to be with you all. We're doing a Facebook Live with none other. If you know Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, you know the guest that is on more than any other guest. His name is Aaron Fruh, and he's a friend. He's a former pastor. He's an author. He's an expert, and after the horrific images of what we saw in Israel taking place over the last few days, horrific, yet this war that they are in is not new. And so for those people who haven't followed this or followed it for like the last 20 plus years, as we have on Nothing But Truth, tell me, what's happening here? Hamas, who is Hamas?
Hamas is a Palestinian terrorist organization that's highly funded by Qatar and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Mm-hmm. And Hamas broke away from Fatah. Fatah is in the West Bank. And so Hamas is in Gaza. That's their stronghold. Mm-hmm. And Gaza was always Israeli land until 2005, under U.S. pressure. Israel gave up land for peace, which was a huge mistake. And so 10,000 Jews were driven out of the Gaza Strip. And the land, it was in the roadmap to peace. Under President George Bush, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell orchestrated this whole roadmap to peace to give up Hebron, the Golan Heights, and Gaza. If we would have given up the Golan Heights, that's our high ground, we would probably be destroyed by now.
They have these lands because they acquired them in a war, which they were defending themselves over the years. I mean, a number of wars, right. 67, 73, from the outset. So these so-called occupied territories, that's BS, bunny stew. It's right. Tell me why they're not occupied territories, that they're in fact Israel's, and there was occupation under Egypt and Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't object.
Right. I mean, the question is between 1967. Why didn't Jordan make Jerusalem the Palestinian state? And they had that opportunity. They possessed Jordan. So all those lands, of course, if you talk to a Jewish person today, and I'm Jewish, we are still reeling from the Roman occupation. And so the Romans destroyed the temple in 70 AD. The Jews were dispersed. The great diaspora happened. Jews were set all over the world. And so the Romans were driven out by the Byzantine Empire, and the Byzantine Empire were driven out by the Ottoman Empire. And so the Ottoman Empire controlled the entire Middle East for 1,000 years. And so after World War I, 1918, the Allied powers met in San Remo, Italy in 1924 or 23, and to decide how we're going to break up all this land. So they gave the land, there were no states in the entire Middle East, just one Ottoman Empire. And so they broke up the land and they gave it to tribes that helped them in the war against Germany. And so Iran, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, I mean, all those countries were given borders in the San Remo Treaty in 1923. And the same with Israel. Israel was given borders. And their borders included all of present-day Israel plus, the West Bank, and then all of Jordan. That was that whole landmass. But under Arab pressure, the Brits said to the Jews, we're going to take away 85% of the land that was designated to you in the San Remo Treaty, and we're going to give it to the Hashemite tribe And so they came down 300,000, and they said, well, we'll call ourselves the Jordanians because we're by the Jordan River. And so that's where Jordan came from. And anyway, so Israel ended up with 15% of her land that was originally promised. And immediately they were attacked by 5 Arab nations.
In 48.
In 48.
Okay, so 1948 they form, and the complete history, in the sense of the beginning before this, is listed below in a talk we had in 2012.
Yeah.
We've had many talks over the
Sure.
years because this has not gone away as we're talking about it. But they were attacked,
Right.
and so out of that attack and out of the wars of 67, 73, tell me what transpired.
Yeah, so the Golan was taken. Jerusalem was taken back. When the Jordanians attacked in the 1967, the Jewish people got Jerusalem back. Again, all these were premeditated attacks against Israel. And so they were able to acquire more land through military means because they were not defeated. They didn't lose. They won. And so they won the Gaza. And so anyway, so they gave back the Gaza to the Palestinians 2005. And within just a few days, the Palestinians went in, burned down Jewish synagogues. The Gaza Strip was the #1 exporter of roses in the world, and tulips. It was Jewish nurseries all along the Mediterranean Sea. All the nurseries were burned to the ground. They destroyed synagogues. And then, of course, Hamas won an election, and they seeded their terrorism into the Gaza Strip. And so, the last several years, what they've been doing is they've been basically terrorizing their own people. Palestinian people are being terrorized by Hamas, and the leaders of Hamas don't even live in the Gaza. They live in other Islamic countries. And anyway, so this war, it's called we're coming against the Zionist occupiers. That they're occupying our land, which is a total fallacy. And go ahead.
Didn't mean to interrupt. Okay, and a lot there. I was just checking out, and one of these things that keeps popping up, and so we're starting anew in the sense of things back with nothing but truth. It's been a while, and so we're getting things together. And thank you for bearing with us. Thank you, everybody. The question is, what you just told me about the occupied territories. It was. They weren't occupied until Israel occupied them out of self-defense. They didn't give them up because they were strategic in their self-preservation.
Right.
It's not like somebody hasn't tried to get rid of all the Jews before, right? That's not new. But this is what this war is about, is it not? It's getting rid of Jewish people, exterminating them from the planet.
100%.
Yeah.
And so actually there was a article that went out today by pro-Palestinian group, and it showed dead bodies of Jews in this present massacre. And the title of the article was, "This is what occupation looks like." It's like, don't you realize that we have to basically eradicate Jews? We have to murder all of them. And so this is what it's going to look like. Don't be so bashful about all this horrific murder, because this is what we have to do. And so the cry of the Palestinian people is, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. So what that means is, from the Jordan River, they're going to push the Jews into the sea. They're going to kill them all. They're going to butcher every single one of them. And so that is the goal. It's not two-state solution. The ultimate goal is for every Jew in Israel to be dead.
For the years since its creation, 48, to understand that Israel has just wanted the right to exist and defend herself, has done more with less, has given land back that they've cultivated and made into prosperous land, took that land only out of self-defense and self-preservation, and now we have a Nazi-like movement that whether it's Shia or Sunni, and that's interesting too, right? Because Iran supports Hamas, which is Sunni. Right. So they all come together when it comes to killing Jews, okay? And this is horrific and awful. Yet, what you're telling me is I'm seeing voice to support for the Palestinians during this butchery. This is, well, I saw it with Nick Berg. I saw it, Daniel Pearl. We all saw it. We covered it. This is Islamists' way of war for them, killing civilians, killing babies, killing women, killing grandmothers. They're disgusting. And yet, I actually have heard people trying to intimidate Jews in Western democracies. What the heck? Excuse me, but what the AG double hockey sticks is going on there? I mean, this sounds like Nazism. I thought we opposed Nazis. I thought we said never again.
Right. Well, what this is, Crane, is I'm not all that smart, but so I was given a research fellowship a few months ago. I've been a part of this organization for 2 years. It's called ISGAP, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. It's based at the Wolf Institute in Cambridge University, and they do their Summer Institute program at Oxford University in the UK. So the last 2 summers I've been invited to present papers at Oxford University.
Not that smart.
No, not that smart. On the issue of anti-Semitism, and of course my...
Here, come in the picture more. Sorry.
My field is...
Let's get closer, buddy. Come on. All right.
My field is Christian anti-Semitism,
yes.
the historic European Christian anti-Semitism that spread into America today. And so what's behind all of this is anti-Semitism. And the new anti-Semitism, of course, during the Holocaust, it was based on religion. The Bolshevik Jews are coming from Russia. They're going to destroy Christianity in Germany.
Right. They
have to be exterminated. Right. So it went from religion, and then when the Nazis were in full power, it became an issue of race. So the Jews are a lesser race than the Aryans. They must be exterminated. So the new anti-Semitism is based on human rights. And so that's what's driving the present day anti-Semitism on our college campuses. It's what's driving the Students for Justice for Palestine that are chapter groups on college campuses all across the world. And so the Jews are interrupting and abusing the human rights of the Palestinians. They're occupying our land. And so therefore...
They have governments on that land.
Yeah.
It's their government.
Right, but they need to be exterminated. That's what's behind it is. Yeah. And so the woke people on our college campuses, our professors, many evangelical college campuses have gone full-blown pro-Palestinian, calling for the removal of Jews from their land based on the issue of human rights. So the Jews have nowhere else to go. And in my family, they perished in the Holocaust. If there had been an Israel, a safe place for them to go, they would have gone and preserved their life. However, today, from what the events of last week, the horrific murders, I talked yesterday, we had an emergency meeting with ISGAP, this group. So there's people on the Zoom call from all over the planet, professors from university, military people, and we had a general on the call with us, an Air Force general from the IDF in Israel. And she told us, she's a part of this organization, ISGAP, and she told us what had happened here, is how this whole event, the world is saying Israel didn't see what was coming.
Yeah, total intelligence failure, it was said.
Well, yes. She said we weren't caught with our pants down, we were caught naked. And what's happened in Israel the last 10 months is the whole issue over the judiciary. It's almost like a civil war between the right and the left. And so the right, Netanyahu had to allow to form his government.
Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Very religious, right-wing Israelis who have come on, and they're saying our religious groups don't want to fight in the military. They're opposed to all the freedoms in Israel, so they're wanting the government to have power over the Supreme Court to make laws. And so that's divided the country. And so we Jews are destroying each other within our own land, right? So there's this friction happening. Many in the military have said, we're going to stop our military service. We're not going to serve Israel anymore.
They're not going to show up for service.
Right.
This is before the attack by
So
Hamas.
in what this general told us is, in our neighborhood,
Right.
we have to be very strong. And our enemies must see that we're strong. So the last 10 months, she said, we've been weakened because of our internal strife. And so if there was any time to hit, it was right now. And so, of course, last week, 2 weeks ago, the United States released $6 billion to Iran. Iran planned this whole, incursion into southern Israel. So it was a green light to the Iranians to go ahead and pull the trigger.
To slaughter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what she said was this was a planned military operation. And what we never saw coming was this kind of sophistication. And so the weapons that were used were of Russian origin. Secondly, the whole thing was a military operation. The first thing they did,
Russian origin, real quick, Russian origin because Iran gets its weapons from Russia because of the deals that they have made and how they have allied themselves and even against the Ukraine. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, so she said the first thing they did, and this hasn't come out in the news, everybody's just saying, why didn't Israel immediately respond with the military? So the first thing they did is they had drones, professional military grade drones with missiles, and they took out our observation posts. Wow. It's the first thing they did. So they hit all of our observation posts along the border, and then they took out all of our tanks with sophisticated drones. Destroyed all the tanks, and then they burst through the wall, and they went and just killed all the soldiers along the border that were defending the border. And then they went to the police station, and I've been to that police station a couple of years ago in Sderot, southernmost city right along the Gaza border. And when I was there a few years ago, they had collected 10,000 rockets that had come over from Hamas. They had everything, the date, the time that it hit, all categorized in this locker room at the police station. That police station was hit. Most of the police officers were murdered. And so
slaughtered. Basically, they went in there and they killed them by bullet or bomb or just knife.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most barbaric.
So they had 5 to 7 hours before the military could respond. Right. They had 5 to 7 hours to just go door to door and butcher Israeli citizens. And so right now the death toll is close to 1,000. They knew this outside concert was happening with young people, and they shot 250 kids in the back as they ran for their lives. And
watch the footage, by the way. Watch the footage. I don't know how you are on that, but I am for watching the footage because you got to see. I think Ben Shapiro made this comment, and others have, about watching evil. And when we talked about this, and the reason I'm kind of jacked up is because since this happened, I've wanted to get back and talk about this and mention that them killing women and children, yes, horrific in the way they're doing and everything else, but this is nothing new in the sense of what Islamists do. This is what they do. They slaughter innocents. And so my action or our action or our country's action should never be based on that raw emotion. It should be based on ending the threat. And I don't want to jump ahead here. I want to continue with how this broke out. But I went back in the archive. We talked about why is it that we are taking the same approach, expecting a different result? Why aren't we letting Israel defend herself and win the war?
Well, I think this time, Train, honestly, this is my opinion.
Yes.
And talking with this military expert yesterday on the phone, that's on the ground in Israel and knows the situation. I don't believe, in my opinion, this is going to be a incursion into the Gaza and just a quick retaliation, and then in a week or two the whole thing is over. I think because of this horrific event and how well planned it was and how many lives that were lost and the wanton butchering. And what she told us yesterday was that the footage hasn't come out yet, but it will. Israel is almost afraid to release it because it is so horrific. But what they did is they went house to house and they murdered children in front of their mothers. They beheaded 100 babies. What they were wanting to do is make a statement that, of who we are, and they reveal to the world who they really are. I mean, they're Satan's seed for sure. I mean, they're demonically inspired butchers. And so I don't believe Israel has any choice but to totally wipe out Hamas at this point. And so I think what you're going to see is a long military campaign. I think the entire Gaza Strip is going to be declared Israel land once again. And I think there's going to be a huge, of course, world response against Israel. But I don't
How is that? How is it that people respond to Israel's response? We've talked about this before.
Right.
I don't drink anymore. I was really good at it when I did it, but I don't do it anymore, 15 years or whatever. But my point is, how looped out do you have to be to blame the victim and the retaliation for the slaughter, which has happened every time Israel defends herself?
Yeah, but what's amazing, though, even with the Holocaust,
Yes.
there's people today in the Arab world that blame the Jews for their own massacre in the Holocaust. It was the Jews that got Israel into Germany in the First World War, and so they deserved everything that was coming to them. And so again, the world it's this whole issue of what's moral equivalency, right? That the Jews are just like the Palestinians. I mean, they're harming the Palestinians there, but the Jews have done everything to protect innocent Palestinian lives, but they have to take out rocket launchers. And so the Hamas, what they do is they plant a rocket launcher next to a school. And so when the rocket launcher is taken out, of course, there's innocent children that are killed.
Well, wait a second. Aaron, you're telling me that we have this information. It's pretty obvious what they're doing, even with their headquarters, I understand, under a hospital or something like that.
Sure.
And you're telling me that we don't report this and ascribe blame where it belongs, which is right with the terrorist. This is what gets me so exercised. Moral equivalency versus it's moral idiocy. It's outrageous. And if it's doing this to me, I don't have family over there. I don't have friends that I could name that are over there.
Right.
And if you don't cry when you watch these videos, I don't know, whatever. Don't watch them in front of kids. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. My point is, how is it that this is not new and people haven't stood up and said, hey, wait a second, Israel's the victim.
Right.
Just wants to live, has done more with less, is the answer to the Middle East, not the problem. How are we here in 2023?
Right.
How does this happen?
How it happens is where all this comes from, the delusion, right? And like these delusional people in America today, they're on MSNBC saying this is all Israel's fault. The delusional situation is coming from our academic institutions. And so that's where ISGAP, this organization, the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, where they're active is on college campuses. That's where the pushback has to be.
That's why you're there.
Right. Because that's what I do on Christian college campuses that have gone totally soft on the issue of Zionism or the state of Israel and the Jewish people's right to exist within their own land. But I'll just give you a couple illustrations. Why is this happening? And you talk, like just yesterday, the former president of Harvard University came out and said, I'm shocked, I'm appalled, because the now president of Harvard, plus many organizations within Harvard University, came out yesterday with a statement against the Jewish people, against the state of Israel, in favor of the human rights of the Palestinians.
Well, hold on. They've seen the videos, they've seen the tech. You're saying yesterday that they made a statement like this yesterday.
Yes.
Now, that is
Delusional.
yes.
Okay, but here's the catch.
Okay.
Here's the smoking gun. So you may wonder why all of these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, pro-Fatah groups are allowed onto Harvard, Princeton, Yale.
Is there a pro-ISIS
Stanford,
group or not?
I don't know if there's a pro-ISIS group.
Okay,
but there's
sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
pro-Palestinian.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Why are they allowed onto our Ivy League schools? Well, in the last 3 years, and this is indicative and true of our major universities in America. Last year, in the last 3 years, Yale University has received $18 billion from the country of Qatar through the Muslim Brotherhood into Yale University. So if I were the president of Yale University and I'm getting pressure from Jewish students, hey, we're being persecuted on campus here, and the pro-Hamas students are doing the persecuting, I'm gonna turn my back. I'm gonna turn a blind eye.
You wouldn't because you have a soul, but I'm
going to turn my back to the Jewish students.
Yeah, but I would say you wouldn't do that because you have
a soul.
you
I hope
have
I
a
have a
soul.
soul.
You can look yourself in the mirror and go, "I'm not going to support Nazis." Just not going to do it.
Okay, but if you're receiving $18 billion a year,
Yeah, no, I got you.
and so we have a paper trail of where this money is coming from. It's coming from Qatar, a radical Islamist country where this terrorist plot was probably planned. A lot of the Hamas leadership, they live in Qatar. And so the money is flowing into American universities. So they've turned their back on Israel. They've gone pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. And so that's where the delusion comes from. There's a money trail behind the delusion.
And as I hear that, the money trail, and so part of this is our reaction to it, or lack of their reaction, and lack of change of basic policy of land for missiles or that kind of thing, in the sense of even President George W. Bush, after 30 days, I believe Condi Rice and him came over and said stop when they were responding, recent history relatively in the last 20 years. So this is bipartisan in that way, and it's an approach that is based on the ignorance of Americans who most likely are hearing this, maybe sometimes for the first time, about how bad this is. Your organization is fighting this, is going and fighting this, not with missiles or guns, but with the truth, nothing but truth, in the way of educating people. And yet it's gotten so pervasive that it's infected Christian universities and even come up with its own ideology or theology, replacement theology. Right. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so this goes deep. And so when people are looking at the horrible scenes and recognizing this is evil, Islamists must be stopped, must be eradicated, what can they do? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say, first of all, I mean, if we're talking to the Christian community, what we have to realize is over the centuries, the greatest threat to Jewish people have been Christians. Christian anti-Semitism is the deepest, most pervasive kind of anti-Semitism historically. And so when you consider, it's called hybrid terrorism. And so the church has been involved in hybrid terrorism for 1900 years. The early church fathers, many of them, wanted to separate themselves from the Jewish people, the land of Israel. So they came up with this whole ideology of replacement theology, that we are the new Israel. God has rejected the Jews. They're just fodder. And you have Martin Luther that comes along, and declares all synagogues should be burned. Jews should be reduced to servitude. So the Nicene Council in 325, very anti-Semitic council. I mean, there was a lot of, theological creeds that were formed in that council, but there was a deep root of Christian anti-Semitism, hybrid terrorism. And so hybrid terrorism is mixing nationalism with religion. And whenever you mix nationalism with religion, it never goes well with Jews. And so since the 4th century, there's been a genocidal note being sounded by the Christian church. And so since 325 AD is when the persecution led by the church, who had formed with the state, using state military to drive Jews from their homes in pogroms. Right. The Inquisition is a good example of hybrid terrorism, where the Catholic Church did not do the killing of the Jews. They, they were going after Jews that had converted in order to save their lives from persecution. So the Catholic Church went and inquired. It was the Inquisition to see, do you still practice the feasts? And if you did, you would be tortured and often murdered. But the church didn't do the killing. The Pope forced the military of Spain to murder the Jewish people. That's hybrid terrorism. And so that Christian terrorism has been the deepest, darkest threat to Jews throughout the centuries. Today, that's growing again after the Holocaust, replacement theology. Places like my alma mater, where I went to a Christian university, a professor there that served for 15 years actually said, in his book, Israeli Jews who don't convert to Christianity are good for nothing and should be burned to death. That's an evangelical.
So these are extremist, extraordinary statements. Many people who are Christian and hearing this, they're saying, but I support Israel. I have none of these beliefs. In fact, if you take the biblical arguments against genocide as you go, that we're all created and we were grafted in with the Jews, right, according to the New Testament. So I'm struggling with understanding how this has continued in the 21st century.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That well, if you don't learn from history, history is bound to repeat itself. And so that's my world. My world is not Islamic terrorism. I deal with it, but my world has been dealing with replacement theology that's growing on Christian college campuses once again. Christian human rights groups that, all of our mainline denominations right now, United Methodist, United Church of Christ, Presbyterian USA, they're all supporting, and I'm talking about the liberal wing of the United Methodists, they're all supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanction movement against Israel. They're probably dancing in their pulpits, thanking God for Hamas right now, that's driving Jews, attempting to drive Jews out of their
You're
land.
saying it is that hot in the sense of their burning desire to kill Jews.
Yes.
You're saying, and the idea is that we are blind to it oftentimes, not because it's a willful blindness per se.
Right.
Maybe some of it could be, we're human, but if I'm looking at it, I'm going, you know what? I support Israel. I'm a Christian. That is absolutely congruent, and it is what I believe in, and we are based on Judeo-Christian values in this country. You like it or not, you can be an atheist, you can be whatever, but those are the principles. They don't have an expiration date because they recognize human nature. And you're saying this is going on. So how many people know about this? Because I think a lot of people are sitting there shocked.
Well, in evangelicalism, you have the left and you have the right. Okay, so in the evangelical left, they've already gone anti-Israel for the last 25 years. They've gone anti-Israel, and again, when I'm talking about mainline denominations like United Methodist, Presbyterian USA, United Church of Christ, they have gone full-blown anti-Zionism. Okay, so maybe someone's listening, and you're in a Baptist church or a Pentecostal church. Those Southern Baptists have not gone anti-Zionism. Right. Thank God. Many Pentecostal churches have not gone anti-Zionism. But on the evangelical right, there's a movement growing right now, which is very dangerous in my estimation, and it's the Christian nationalist movement. And the editor of Christianity Today just last month came out with an article against the rise of Christian nationalism. And so you're a patriot. Okay, I'm a patriot. I love America.
Right.
I have the flag flying from my house.
Right. Greatest country ever.
I'm a patriot.
Yeah.
But I'm not a nationalist.
No.
So there's a difference.
Right.
Christian nationalism is, and books are being published today, Crane, like you can't believe. I mean, they're coming off the press. Seems like every month a new Christian nationalist book is coming out. And what these people are calling for is a complete takeover of the United States government by force. By force. To make America a Christian nation once again. And we were never really, when you say, well, Christian nation, I mean, what does that even mean?
Definitions are everything.
The
there.
Pilgrims and all those people, yes, we had Judeo-Christian values, but our government, there was a separation between church and state. Our government was freedom of religion.
Right.
So and
they didn't want the government going into churches. The letter to the Danbury Baptist from. Yes, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I mean, there's all sorts of religions. I can be a Buddhist in America. I can be a Muslim in America.
You can be an atheist.
I can be an atheist in America. It's
do.
the beauty of America.
Yeah.
It's democracy. It's freedom of religion. Yeah. But what these people are saying is, where we're going to remove freedom of religion, and there's going to be one religion, and it's going to be Christianity. We're going to wipe out all religions and take over the government. That is the new Christian nationalism.
So you're saying there's a backdrop to what we are seeing right now with Hamas.
Right.
Okay. And as I sit there and go, Islamists are the greatest threat to the world as we know it. I think any ideology that embraces...
And I agree with that, 100%. Yeah.
But what you're saying is their anti-Semitism, as it's gone, there is a growing movement that is okay with what Islamists believe, in the sense of, we're not going to stop you from believing that because we too think the Jews shouldn't exist. Don't belong.
Yeah. No, they're not going to say we want to murder Jews.
Right.
Although Dr. Gary Burge, who is this professor I was telling you about, in his book declares the land does not belong to Jews. It belongs to Palestinian people. And so he quotes John 15:6. If you don't remain in the vine, you'll be a withered branch, and you're good for nothing and should be cast into the fires and burned. That was the scripture used during the Inquisition to burn Jews at the stake. So he pulls that scripture from the Inquisition to say Israelis who don't convert today should be cast into the fires and burned. After the Holocaust, how can you as a moral agent say something like that? So this man, I would say, is immoral. I mean, he's bloodthirsty. And so, yes, so he would probably today say, they're getting what's coming to him. Would he be the guy that would pull the trigger? No. But he would be the one that would support the terrorism against Israel based on, his delusional opinion of Israel's lack of human rights in the region.
Well, it's so odious, and I would think that if people were exposed to this, they'd say, I don't want this person shaping the minds of young adults. I don't want to deal with this person. The marketplace of ideas and beliefs would reject him and put him in the dustbin of his ideology, in the dustbin of history, as it should have been in the 20th century. So, I mean, and beforehand, but specifically 20th century, as we understand the manifestation of governments and so forth. So what I'm getting at is a lot of people are hearing about this, seeing these dramatic images, and what do you want them to take from this? Do we as Americans, should we support, how do we just support Israel during this? What do we vote for in the sense of voting, in the sense of our minds and policy? What policy makes sense to you? What should we support as Americans in response to what Israel is facing?
Yeah, so first of all, I as a Christian, I should support the existence of the Jewish people. number one.
Yeah.
Their existence.
Yeah.
And I should support.
That's not a really hard sell, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's. But you're saying, you're kind of saying, wake up, Crane. This stuff is here.
Right.
And if you think it's just over there, and the idea that people are not tolerating people, Jewish people, or the existence of Jewish people, you're wrong. And that's why we're seeing a lot of people who are demonstrating in support of this.
Right. The Jews are the alarm clock of the world because of the Ten Commandments. And so if I despise the God who declares himself the God of Israel, I can't get to him. So I'm going to take out his people. And so first and foremost, I have to support the very existence of the Jewish people. And I have to support the Abrahamic covenant. And the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, there's different aspects of the covenant. God said to Israel, I'm going to make you a great nation. So he's going to give them national status. I'm going to make you into a people, a family. So it's peoplehood. And I'm going to give you a land. So just the first three aspects, a nation, a peoplehood, a land. And then God says, through you, I'm going to bless you. Blessing upon the Jews as my chosen people to bring my light of revelation to the nations of the earth, which was always God's. He needed to start with someone, so he started with Abraham,
Right.
a man of faith, to bring his law, his commandments that bring life to the nations of the earth. I'll bless all the families of the earth through you. So have those things been fulfilled? Yes, God gave them a land. He made them a people. He made them a blessing to all the nations of the earth. I mean, today, Christians can celebrate a Jewish Messiah, Jesus. He's a Jew.
Yeah.
He was born a Jew. He lived as a Jew. And when he returns, he's returning as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So where we get the name Jew comes from the tribe of Judah. So he's coming as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's coming back as a Jew. And we serve a Jewish Messiah.
Yeah.
And so we should celebrate that all of our spirituality has come from the Jewish people. And as a result of that, it was a pope one day that said, the Jews brought a God-given moral light into the world, and for that, they've never been forgiven. And so in every generation, the Jews have been mugged, every single generation. Right. They've been persecuted, they've been driven from their homes, they've been driven from their communities, and today, they have nowhere else to go. Right now, there's 5,000 Jews that are fleeing from France into Israel every year because of the persecution against Jews, the anti-Semitism that's growing.
We covered that over the years.
Yeah,
Halloween, story after story, year after year. Yeah.
The Islamic anti-Semitism that's growing in Europe. So European Jews are fleeing to Israel. So they have nowhere else to go except this land. And so why, by the way, Israel's land is 600 times smaller than all the Islamic lands in the Middle East. 600 times smaller. So what the world says is, you can't have a Jewish state. Well, then why do we have the Islamic State of Iran, the Islamic State of Qatar, the Islamic State of Saudi Arabia? They're all declaring, we worship our God, we want to have our religion in our land. But the Jews, who, by the way, the Dome of the Rock is still there. They haven't blown it up. If that were...
No, there's a tolerance and freedom there.
Right.
And it's more freedom than any other of the countries surrounding it.
Yeah, if you go into Qatar and declare, hey, I'm a Christian, you're going to be put to death. But in Israel, there's churches, there's mosques, there's synagogues, the three great world religions, they all worship together in relative peace, until now. So of what's happening, today. So anyway, these are the great issues of our time. And
Well, go ahead. They are the great issues of our time. The vast majority of people watching, listening, don't share these anti-Semitic beliefs and are sitting there kind of like they were maybe when they were seeing the videos of the terrorism of the early 2000s and through 2023 as we're seeing it, and saying, okay, we've got some things to root out here. There's something actually going on in the Christian church, and we need to address it. Replacement theology, and there's money that's coming from republics that are supportive of countries that are supportive of this Islamofascism, Islamism, as it's called. And do we just need to be better stewards of what not only we are supporting financially, but also what we're supporting educationally and otherwise? Do we need to examine what's going on here? Because it's like looking at a huge problem and saying, what can I do? And you mentioned the organization that you're with.
Yeah, my organization is Israel Team Advocates. And you can go to our website, israelteam.org. It's an educational website. And you'll find many articles on the website that'll help you understand the present conflict, how we got to this point. Also, there's a podcast. I do a weekly podcast.
Where do you do that?
It's on our website.
Website, yes.
You'll as soon as you hit the website.
And you have done that on AFR Talk in the past,
yes?
Right. Yes, okay, so people know you and they hear you. Okay, yes.
Yeah, and so then you can go to Times of Israel.
Yes.
I write weekly for the Times of Israel about these issues, especially about the issues of Christian anti-Semitism. So what I would suggest is, if you want to help, how do I fight against, what we're fighting here is global anti-Semitism. And what happened last week is just like the tip of the spear of radical Islamist anti-Semitism. But there's all kinds of anti-Semitism that's growing within Christianity, within Islam, within different groups, hate groups. Christianity is not a hate group, but
right, you're talking about Christian nationalists who are looking to replace the Constitution.
Right, and their enemy, their arch enemy, are liberal Jews, which is anti-Semitic, right? So just remember, during the Holocaust, the number of indifferents is 0.1%. That's the number of indifferents. So how did I come to that number? Because the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. So if I see you suffering and I'm just indifferent, it's not that I hate you, it's just I don't care, And so the number of indifference is 0.1%. That's the number of the righteous Gentiles from the nations during the Holocaust, when Jews were being rounded up door to door in communities all through Europe. There were 30,000 righteous Gentiles, 30,000 out of 300 million in the occupied territories. So that's 30,000 righteous people, one of them Corrie ten Boom. And if you go to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, they have a garden there, and in the garden there's a walkway, it's called the Pathway of the Righteous. And there's a tree planted for these great righteous people from the nations that preserved Jews, hid Jews, protected Jews. So 0.1%. So I would say that's probably true in America today, even within the Christian church. It's just people are indifferent to the suffering.
I don't think they know about it. I just disagree. I know, hey, look, with respect, I think I can't think of a Christian I know who wouldn't be outraged and take issue with the replacement theology and the way and the general sense of anti-Semitism, and especially I can't think of anybody who would look at those images and say, that's all right, no big deal, or maybe it's just it's over there, it doesn't matter to us. No, I've seen absolute horror and reaction saying, hey, I want to do something, I want to help.
Where a person could start is where anti-Semitism grows is through ignorance. And 2021, 2022, there was a Brookings Institute poll across America.
Right.
of Americans, many of who said that Jews have too much power in this country, right? We need to remove them from government. This was
I laugh because it's so asinine, the Jewish
Right.
conspiracy, but that's what a lot of times we talk about things,
Right.
and what you're saying is the meta point. There's this idea that if you ever talk to a conspiracy theorist, somewhere along the line, there's a good chance it's going to end up blaming the Jews
Right.
for their success.
Right.
It's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
It's a mental illness.
Yeah, so there's a delusion
Yeah.
within the American population that there's something wrong in this country.
Mm-hmm.
The Jews have this conspiracy to control the banking system. That's being seeded in our universities, in our high schools, and another research that came out 2021
Mm-hmm.
showed that 70% of American evangelical millennials
Mm-hmm.
are opposing Israel. 70%. So evangelicalism will be anti-Israel within a few short years if we continue on this track. So where the change has to happen is within our grammar schools. We have to start teaching Holocaust education. Another poll,
Oh, it's actually teach what actually happened.
right? Another poll that just came out. It was a 50-state poll of the knowledge of the Holocaust of millennials between people from the ages of 18 to 34. What is your knowledge of the Holocaust? And the statistics are startling. 60 to 70% could not name one of the death camps. There was 40,000.
Yeah.
They couldn't even name Auschwitz.
That's stunning.
So it just gets deeper and deeper. So what happens is there's no knowledge of the Holocaust, of Jewish suffering. So, you're listening, maybe you're a school teacher. You can get permission at your school to teach Holocaust education. You can go to groups like the United States. Yad Vashem has an educational wing in the United States. It's I think it's called the U.S. Yad Vashem Institute. You can get materials. You can teach a class on the Holocaust, what took place here. Start teaching Jewish history.
Why wouldn't
to
you
students.
teach that in light of it being history and obviously significant history that impacts us all because it had a worldwide effect?
Right.
Why? And you're saying, I feel like you're going to go, hey, Dorothy, there's no Oz. It's not being taught anymore. It's gone.
Holocaust is not being taught like it once was.
Yeah.
I was at a major Christian university recently, and we did a man on the street video. Christian university, evangelical, 10,000 students. We had a guy with a camera.
Yeah.
We had a student with a microphone. We had permission to be on the campus. Students are coming by, put a microphone in your face.
Yes.
Who is Hamas? Is Hamas a terrorist organization or a humanitarian organization? 99% of the students said humanitarian organization. These are the cream of the crop evangelical students. Second question, what was the Holocaust? No one knew.
Wow.
Not one student could say the Holocaust was the Shoah, the murder of 6 million Jews during World War II. Who was Adolf Hitler? One student said he was a general from the north who came to the south after the Civil War and pillaged the antebellum homes in the Deep South.
But you're saying this took place on a college campus. I've seen the man on the
Christian-
street
yeah.
when I used to watch late night when Jay Leno was there until they all went left and just not funny.
Yeah.
Except for Gutfeld. Gutfeld's pretty good. My point is, people, there is an amazing amount of ignorance coming from our academic institutions in the form of manifestation in the students and their responses to this. And there's another thing that I just wanted to throw in because when you were telling me about this, it started to say, okay, well, how bad is it? Well, the number one group impacted at hate crimes year after year are Jews.
Right.
And that's never talked about.
Right. You can go to the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and they have a chart every year.
Yeah.
And you just look up anti-Semitic hate crimes in the United States. And they graph this every year. And in the last 3 years, there's been a 300% increase, according to FBI statistics, of anti-Semitic hate crimes in the United States of America.
And it would not be difficult for a political leader, and some have, to not only speak up like Ted Cruz speaks up for Israel. And by the way, yeah, I like Ted Cruz. I thought he was the candidate in 2016. Remember I was wrong about? Okay. But my point is, there are good people who are speaking up about this. But to look at it as some kind of conflict and not a war, and not really the same war, I'm talking about Islamo-fascists, that we're in, not recognizing little Satan, big Satan. And it's a big deal that Iran used its expertise with its funding, and not only that, not technically the $6 billion because it's not released totally yet, and money's fungible, by the way, but it sent the signal. Hostages. They got hostages during this, did they not? And they put a premium on hostages because we gave the money for it. So we're all taking this in, and politics is a part of things. I'm not your vote, your business, but I obviously have an opinion, and I believe in conservative principles, as does my friend here and guest. But we don't necessarily agree on everything, right? Beautiful thing, America. My point is, in saying this, as we're hearing this, leaders can identify. They can make the case to people. If I found out, say, my kids were younger and going to elementary school, and I was sitting there going, I want to make sure the Holocaust is taught. The Holocaust is taught because I want them to know one of the greatest evils of the 20th century. I want to know the genesis of that, how it happened, and how did we let it happen, and how did incrementalism, in the sense of surrender, in the sense of appeasement, work. Why were they cheering Chamberlain when he came back with Peace in Our Time? Go to the tape. They were cheering him. So I want to figure this out. I'm a parent. I want to get involved. Do I go to the school? Do I go to, you mentioned the ADL. You also mentioned your organization. And there are resources out there that can give you a place to start, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can have your kids read The Diary of Anne Frank. I mean, there's books like this.
I would think that would be mandatory.
Right, but now they're saying in a lot of public schools it's too difficult for children to read this. Someone in Texas was recently fired because she was passed out the Diary of Anne Frank to her students. Yeah. So
get on a school board.
Yeah,
that's what you need to do.
Right.
I mean, yes or no?
Sure,
I don't
yeah.
hate interrupting you, by the
No,
way.
it's
You're
great.
sitting there going, you hate it. You do it a lot. Come on. Aaron, I could talk to you till Friday and not stop because I have so many questions. And I want you to come back on the program. And I want to get an update on what's happening on college campuses. I also wanted to go into replacement theology. I know we've done shows on it before, but I think a lot of people are sitting there going, what is this?
Right.
Also want to say, hey, when you're seeing this evil, the evil is not new. This attack was absolutely horrible, and they're not militants, they're terrorists. But this is an organized group of people and countries, and they are a threat. We are the big Satan versus the little Satan, Iranian Republic. Check that out. That's what they said. Ahmadinejad. I mean, that's back 10 years. My point is, we can't tune out, okay? I know the woke stuff is crap, and it's awful, and it's like gender is binary, sex is binary, male, female. So we get all that, all these things, but they're not going away until we face them and challenge them. And the beautiful thing about America is we can do it without fighting, without physical contact. We can actually have a discussion and go to our better angels and find out what the history is. And I'm not lecturing and saying you should, but I am saying for the sake of the country, I should. You should. We all should start getting involved because the madness is not going to stop. What happens? If the alligator's growing, he's just going to eat you last. You're still going to be eaten. So you got to face these things. And I hope we're offering a vehicle to face these things with giving you nothing but truth. And tremendous resources and the courage of people like the guy standing next to me, who's my superhero, okay? I have him. He doesn't wear a cape. Not all superheroes wear capes. But sincerely, he's that because he has been on the front lines. He has done meeting after meeting, and he has brought so many people to, as a Christian, Jesus Christ. And he's baptized my family too. I mean, he's just an amazing guy. But I want you to know we're going to have resources, we're going to have discussions, and we're going to take your comments, and I want to know what you think. And I look forward to that discussion over the next few years as we continue with Nothing But Truth. Aaron Fruh, thank you.
Thanks, Crane, for having me.
Great to be with you. And we can put the website listed in the information.
Sure.
And there is information below with past broadcasts. I want to thank my wife who's produced this for me. She is awesome. She is beautiful and amazing. And I could sing a Peter Cetera song about her right now. You're the answer. No, I won't. And I want you to live with honor in your life, compassion in your heart, and always, always keep the faith. Tell me what you think, and thank you very much. Wherever you are and whenever you are, I thank you for taking the time to be with us. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Okay, and you'll